Hi, I'm Dan Sanguinetti,
And I am Russell Lee.
and this is Film Rhapsody.
Heaven has no rage, like love to hatred turned, or hell of fury, like a woman scorned.
In our first Halloween episode. As we chronicle the making of our new film Alice, Russell and I look back on the scary movies that inspired our own horror journeys. We count down top 5 horror films that inspired us to make our own. And we talk about shooting the Alice concept reel that we produced back in July to help build interest in our project. But first, let's go for a walk down memory lane. Halloween will always be a notable event in my career as a filmmaker. Back in 2011, we launched my first crowdfunding campaign for our zombie horror feature, Day of the Dead. We held a press event that included 2 zombies made up by makeup artist extraordinaire Kirsten Paulicki, a ton of cast and crew, and amazingly, members of the press. Yes, they actually turned up, and I was definitely thrown by their attendance. Though, this was a time when zombies weren't overplayed and overrated, with AMC's The Walking Dead still in its infancy, and the playful delights of Shaun of the Dead continued to ring gloriously throughout everyone's fresh zombie brains. I could have never imagined on that day that for the next 8 years and beyond that I'd think of myself as a horror filmmaker. But there I was, standing in front of my peers and the media. I experienced any public speaker's worst nightmare. My mouth froze. I had no words. I stood there in almost silence, my lips quivering, looking to make a sound. It didn't. It may have not been my first public speaking event, but at that point, it was by far the most important. This was about raising money for our feature film. Somehow, perhaps thanks to the encouraging support of people that I still make films with today, the words began to form. I brought the presentation to its climactic moment. In an ad-libbed action, an effort to save the day, I awkwardly picked up a laptop that I should have been reading from in the first place and invited one of the zombies to launch the Indiegogo campaign. Staying in perfect zombie character, he tried to point out that the Canberra Times website was on the screen and not the campaign. As he moaned professionally, as if he had walked off the Walking Dead set, he gestured his arm towards the screen, barely scratching the keyboard. Instantly, I snapped the laptop shut, announcing the crowdfunding campaign was now live. I was met with joyous cheers and applause. As he shuffled away, that's how I made a zombie roll his eyes. Happy Halloween, Russell.
This podcast is scaring me.
How have you been in the last week?
I'm freaking out now, but good, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have decided that for our first Halloween episode, we're going to explore a bit more about our Alice trailer concept reel that we worked on, what was it, in July?
July, yeah. Somehow the graveyard we hanged at is less scary than this soundbite.
So we put together a concept trailer so that we can start pitching the project on a more financial level.
Yep.
To, I guess, potential investors and distributors and things like that. I guess the main idea behind that was so that we didn't go in cold when we start saying, what is Alice and what it's about? So, we went through a number of different iterations of the concept reel. I believe we were going to do a short film originally, but we decided and settled on going with a false trailer.
We came very close to shooting the beginning of the film, which is now not actually in the script. We had a sequence that survived the first few drafts, and then we decided that we didn't want it at all. And for a while, that was going to be it. We were going to have our first kill. We're going to have setups to some of the main characters, but not actually see the main characters. And we were going to have our first look at Alice. And ultimately, we decided to write a trailer based on the feature script, bring in some actors to play certain roles. We shifted around some of the kills that showed off some of the movie. We had a friend of ours, Shani Lee Smith, play the role of Alice. We had Emma Peterson play Chloe, and we had Jacob Kilner play Matt. And we shot it over 2 days, 1 day in Goulburn, 1 day in Canberra, and had a lot of fun doing it.
The ideas that the trailer has, I mean, like, it isn't a type of trailer I think a distributor or a sales agent would actually put together to advertise a film. I think the way that that we've put it together was so that it actually gave all the key information we need to know. If we were to make this film, this is what it would look like. When there's a team involved, like you and I and other practitioners who are working together, what would you say is the reason behind us going for this approach?
Well, you can write the best script in the world, but it's sometimes you can't actually envision what it's going to be like. A lot of the time, some of the best movies just lay on the page, and it's not until actors bring them to life, the characters to life, and you go out there and you shoot them to actually see it. So this is a way of us being like, okay, we can't afford to shoot the entire movie right now, but we can give you a little taste. This is what we want the movie to look like. This is what we want the movie to feel like. This is some of the stuff you're going to see in it, but this is the general vibe. And if you give us some money,
we can make it better.
Yeah, we can make it better. We can,
And now, obviously, we decided to shoot this in Goulburn because we had been wanting to choose Goulburn as the film's location for quite a while. I believe we scouted back in 2018.
Yep, I think it was September or October.
Something like that, yeah. And it was, I mean, it was kind of winter. Oh, no, it was spring.
Yep.
Yes, it was spring, but we ended up shooting in the middle of winter, which made it interesting because, obviously a horror film is generally at night.
Yep.
And it was genuinely in dark places.
I think it added to the mood.
Yeah, and so what that meant was we found ourselves in a graveyard.
Yes, the Goulburn Graveyard, I think it was called. That was about an hour and a half I think we were there for, freezing our butts off in -2 degree weather. And I think in the trailer, you can see poor Emma Peterson's breath just misting out in front of her, just her turning a nice, lovely shade of blue as the shooting went on.
So we also shot part of the trailer at the Canberra Technology Park, which is where we're recording this podcast.
Yep, just a few feet away, actually.
Yeah, and there was a certain malfunction that I think we need to talk about a bit of one of our blood effects that left me quite panicked because the Canberra Technology Park is my landlord basically for Sanguinetti Media, and there was a blood cannon.
So basically what happened was the hose was connected to an air compressor. It was supposed to blow a big burst of blood.
Yeah. And
on our first take, we hit the massive air compressor, which was incredibly loud even in that small confined space.
Yeah.
And the hose tore off his...
Yeah, the gaffer tape just
ripped it right off his neck. And blood pretty much sprayed everywhere.
Like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Roof, walls, camera, cast, crew.
I think the interesting thing was after I think it was 2 more takes to get it perfect.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I mean, it's trial and error. So I actually built the compressor gun, the blood cannon through basically watching YouTube videos. It's not complicated at all. It's actually quite simple to do. I mean, the whole idea is using an air compressor. You want to get the blood to sort of spurt out the end of a hose. I just did not factor in the power of the air compressor.
Oh yeah,
and the lack of strength that the gaffer tape would have against his neck.
It goes to show just how dedicated both the cast and crew are to helping us get Alice off the ground. Is that we spent a good half hour afterwards, cast and crew,
probably longer,
cleaning up the walls, and just cleaning up the murder scene, so
it
didn't
was
freak out everyone else.
It was literally us looking like we were cleaning up a murder scene.
Yep.
And perhaps the most hilarious part of that, there was a security camera watching the entire thing the whole time, and no one turned up. So luckily, we were good. But yes, that I think is always going to be a strong memory to have.
And the blood kind of still remains there today.
Yeah, there's a few spots we missed, unfortunately.
Yep.
But yeah, as we mentioned at the start, the Canberra Technology Park is being rebuilt at some stage in the future. And if anyone from the Canberra Technology Park is listening to this podcast, I am so sorry.
Hey guys.
It's cleaned. It's all cleaned. There's a few specks left. I mean, before it was cleaned, it sort of looked like
Bit of a Jackson Pollock painting.
yeah, it was it was a crazy amount of blood. No, it's just sugar and food coloring.
It's just art.
Yeah, it was art that we're trying to do, and
It's messy. We cleaned it up.
yeah. So we'll be releasing that concept reel actually right now, as if you're listening to this on Halloween. We've just put it up onto the Sanguinetti Media Facebook page. Yep. So it's sort of facebook.com/Sanguinetti Media.
Podcast, go check it out.
Yeah, and I will put in the description. I mean, it's got a very limited amount of space in the description, but yeah, go check it out. Have a look at what we're thinking the film is going to be like. It's just an example. It's just a way of expressing our tone and feel that we're hoping to do.
It's rough, but it shows the feelings of it.
Yeah, that's right. So go check it out. Have a look, and yeah, we'll obviously have more updates on how Alice is going soon.
Yes, we will.
Okay, so it's Halloween. I guess that means we should talk about
Scary shit.
scary movies. Yeah. Okay. I will have a confession straight up. Complete confession. I have never really liked horror movies. And I think because the term horror movie has grown and changed a lot.
Yep.
So my favorite sort of horror genre films are more probably on the thriller level.
Yeah.
But, I guess there is a bit of interest in the gore and the blood of horror films that is there, but it's never been...
It can be fun, but you can take it and leave it. I'm not the biggest horror fan myself.
Yeah.
I'm more of a sci-fi fan.
Yeah.
But, I tend to write what comes to me.
Yeah.
I think Alice would make a very bad musical.
Right, yeah.
It would make a pretty good horror film.
Yeah.
So that's what the story was going to be. So
Yeah.
I tend to write what works.
Yeah.
But I still do enjoy horror films.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess we, as Australians, have a very different sort of Halloween experience.
As in non-existent, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I mean, my street does the trick-or-treat thing and stuff. And
Well, it started in the last probably 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
It's been pushed on people.
Yeah, but the Halloween thing is much more an American trait. I mean, I lived in the UK for 10 years. And yeah, I guess because it's very close to another sort of national event called Guy Fawkes Night.
Yeah.
The two events sort of tie into each other. So Halloween and Guy Fawkes sort of flows together. And in Guy Fawkes, it's to commemorate when some guy tried to blow up Parliament Houses. And so they, non-horringly...
Sounds like something we should probably celebrate.
they I don't know if they celebrate it. I think they honor it or they commemorate it by burning an effigy of Guy Fawkes on a bonfire, which is
we
quite
saw in V for Vendetta, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite morbid, really, as a thing. I guess that ties very closely to the Halloween feel, but that's kind of been my experience growing up. So, with that in mind, it's interesting to try and deconstruct what our experience with Halloween is like, considering it's not something that's really as deeply a part of our culture, but it is.
I did actually go trick-or-treating once.
Oh, there you go.
It was 1985, I believe.
Yep.
I went trick-or-treating around my neighborhood as a ghost.
Yep.
I wore a sheet covered in flowers.
Yep.
Because we didn't have a white sheet.
Yep.
I kept bumping into things because Mum wouldn't let me cut eye holes out.
Yep.
And after about 5 or 6 hours of people being like, hey, this is Australia, we don't have Halloween here, I went home.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Which means that most of our Halloween stuff, I guess, comes from American
From the movies, yeah.
American Hollywood,
Yeah.
sort of, that sort of connection. And
Still waiting for it to snow on Christmas.
yeah, that's right. I mean, well, see, that's the thing. In England, I got that.
Yep.
We did have a few white Christmases, not many, because it sort of snows later in January. But
Yep.
it is a very different experience in Australia, which makes it interesting that Alice starts as
On Halloween night.
on Halloween night, and it's a quiet Australian country town. But I guess that's where the sort of the fictional world that we're creating sort of exists. It could be an American town, but it's very much got its own unique Australian elements to it as well.
It's not the first time that I've done something like that. In my first feature script reunion, I sort of had this United States of America attitude for where the town was. Took a little bit of Australian, took a little bit of American, and meshed it up so it was more of a universal town. Like you can live here if you're in America or in Australia. So that's kind of what Alice is. Like Alice is set, hopefully, in the 1980s, in a time when Australia really didn't give a damn about Halloween.
Yeah.
And so this is Halloween party going on, and so it's hopefully it crosses boundaries. That's the intention of it.
Yeah.
To not just be, okay, this is Australia, you have to deal with it being an Australian thing that you can't connect with in America, or vice versa, you can't connect with the American stuff in Australia. So hopefully universal.
And I guess a lot of what Alice tends to bring out is sort of both our love for Halloween movies or scary movies, slasher movies and that sort of thing. But there is also where the story does go towards in that it's also Christmas movie.
Yes.
And I think that's because that's a sort of a selfish affection for Shane Black movies, and at least his style of him and his Christmas affection. But I think Christmas movies really do sort of there's something about it that I really love, but I love even more when horror movies are set during Christmas time.
It's kind of interesting because I remember when you first started talking about, okay, we're going to start on Halloween, because I think originally the party was later in the script.
Yeah.
So it was kind of ends on Halloween. So the idea of starting on Halloween and sort of ending on Christmas and having this horror movie that all logic says it should happen over a few days' time, happening over a couple months' time, took me a little time getting used to it. And then I sort of put my thinking hat on and came up with an in-universe reason why it takes that long to happen. And I'm very happy with that decision now. Yeah, I think it's very, very interesting and different and smart.
Now, when it comes to horror movies, we've been chatting before we started recording a bit about some of the horror movies that we both really enjoy and love. And we kind of also said, let's limit to talking about only 5. And we were like, oh, God, okay, which 5? Because, and we ended up Googling.
I've seen your top 5 films.
Yeah, Googling 200 best horror films just to sort of get a sense of maybe we can whittle it down.
Yeah.
But I think we've got 5 horror films that we both like. So we're going to do a bit of a Halloween horror countdown. Russell, I believe you've prepared earlier a theme song.
You're incorrect.
I thought you might sing.
No.
Well, okay.
Not until the soundtrack.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right. So, all right. Well, we'll do it this way then. Number 5. What's number 5 on your list?
Number 5 is actually, it's a movie I haven't seen since I was probably about 7 or 8, long before I should have actually seen it. It was actually one of the first videos my mother ever rented from the pizza bar / video store. And I haven't seen it since then. It's probably not very good. It's Chud.
Chud? Okay, I've not.
Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
Oh my God.
It is, I think, like I said, been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah.
as I recall, it was a zombie film set in New York
Yep.
with zombies in the sewers.
Yep.
I think Randy Quaid or
Okay.
Dennis Quaid
One of the Quades.
or Quaid was in the movie.
Okay.
And it's kind of become a bit of a cult classic. And I
Okay.
remember watching a good portion of it behind a pillow, Scared Shitless.
Yep.
And I remember just having a tremendous effect on me. Like that's one of my earliest horror movie memories. Now, I probably saw Hitchcock before then. I probably saw even The Exorcist before then. But that image just sort of stuck with me, just being terrified of probably this campy, silly horror film. Because the sequel is called Bud the Chud, and it's more of a comedy.
Okay.
I think now the movies are kind of hard to see because it's lost in distributing hell.
Yeah.
No one knows who owns the rights. I know Kevin Smith for a while was talking about doing a remake of the whole thing.
Yep.
But yeah, Chud is one of those films that really influenced me.
Okay. Well, the number 5 of mine, I cheated. I apologize. I've got
number 5 and 6.
well, it's 5 and 6, but it's number 5 because it's kind of the same movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going to argue it's not. But it's Jaws
Yeah.
and Land Jaws or Tremors.
Tremors.
I mean, like if we're talking which one influenced me more, you would expect me to say Jaws because the work of Steven Spielberg is, I guess it's my blueprint as much as Peter Jackson's work has been.
A lot of people's blueprints.
Yeah. But I think most influential would be Tremors.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous. It's God frightening as a concept where you're walking on the ground and something under the ground is kind of come and
I don't actually
eat you.
remember if I've actually seen Tremors.
Oh dear!
Or
Podcast over.
yeah, we are done professionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might have. I have certain memories. Like I know Kevin Bacon's in it.
Yep.
I don't know. Is Michael Gross in the first one, or
He's
is he just in
in
the sequels?
every single one somehow, and some of them are set hundreds of years in the past.
Is he in the TV series?
I think he guest stars.
Of course he does.
Yeah, and yes, I've seen all of them apart from one of the more recent sequels. I believe there is a remake coming out too, and I've watched the TV series. So yes, I'm very much a fan of Tremors, and was a bit disappointed.
This is a side note, but I know with like the Tremors TV series, they just put out a Critters TV series.
Oh yeah, I did see
And
that.
I really want to see that. I think I love the Critters movies when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Granted that they like the Ghoulies were knockoff Gremlins.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just love going back to that whole stuff. But
Yeah.
one question I wanted to ask is now Tremors, I think, is there 6 or 7 movies, something like that?
Oh, I've lost track. I mean, anyone can IMDb
Jaws
it.
has 5 movies.
4.
5.
What's the 5th one?
Deep Blue Sea.
Oh.
I saw that movie and I'm like, this is awesome. This is like the Jaws sequel I've been wanting to see.
Yeah, okay, I'll pay it.
That shark killed Sam Jackson. That was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah, that was a good moment in that film.
Which series do you prefer out of the two? Because some of the sequels I know with Jaws, don't know with Tremors.
Oh no, Tremors
are
like
fucking just shocking.
in balancing it from Jaws to Tremors as a franchise does way better than Jaws.
So there's no scenes in Tremors where what are the monsters called?
Graboid. Well, each movie they evolve,
Right.
So they all become and turn into different things.
So there's no scene in the Tremors movies where the Graboids follow Michael Gross to the Caribbean. And somehow get there before he does, like there was in Jaws: The Revenge.
Yeah. In the third one,
No romancing by Michael Caine.
the third one, they are able to fly.
I'm gonna see these films. I'm really gonna see these films. Now, are these like I remember a few years back there was a movie called Holes, and I remember seeing like a trailer for that.
That's a kids movie.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's not connected.
I know, but is that kind of along the same lines as Tremors? No.
No. Tremors is like land sharks, like
Land Jaws.
yeah, land jaws. Yeah, it's
kind of funny. At a time when I was younger, I had this idea of just parroting Jaws with a movie called Teeth. And there was literally a scene where Jaws is behind the wheel of a car chasing the family down the highway. Did that happen in Tremors?
Probably. I think Tremors have done it, to be honest.
The Gremlins just driving cars.
Yeah. I'm not. I wouldn't be surprised.
Gotta get this box set.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to number 4.
Number 4 for me is a recent film. I'm not too sure how many years ago it was. I caught it on Netflix about a year ago. It's called Hush.
Okay.
Real simple movie. I think there's maybe 5 or 6 people in the movie, and it's about a deaf woman who is living by herself in the woods. And she's
I thought I saw it, but no. As soon as you said woods,
really awesome film. Really simple premise, really cool film. And basically, she is going about her night, doesn't realize her neighbor is banging on the door and being killed by a masked man. Eventually, about a minute or so later, she does discover this, and then the entire movie is the masked man trying to get into the house and get her, and she fights back. And it is so well done. It was most likely a very inexpensive movie to make. I think the actress that played the deaf woman was the writer. Just such a great film. So simple. Shows you what you can do with just a whole fuck ton of imagination and the desire to make a film.
Okay.
Very influential on what I want to do with Alice.
Oh. My number 4 is 1408.
I remember it, but I haven't seen it.
Oh my god!
That's Stephen
Podcast over.
We're done officially again.
Yeah.
That's Stephen King, isn't it?
Here's me making fun of you, and you've just said 2 films I haven't seen, so podcast over. Yeah, look, 1408 was a surprise. I thought it would be like way more scarier than it is, and it's a scary film. I just think it was just crafted so well. In that, I mean, John Cusack gives just a performance. Mm-hmm. I just love it. Like, he was great in it. I think that was the main draw. It's just I was able to follow his character's, emotional journey through that, and I just left like really satisfied at the end. It was a satisfying movie, and
was this a Stephen King?
I believe, I think it is Stephen King.
Or probably a short story, I imagine.
I think it was based off a short story. I don't think it was based off a full novel, but.
And it's basically a bunch of people at a motel.
Yeah, well, it's about a writer that John Cusack plays. He's a horror writer.
Stephen King wrote a story about a writer. He hardly ever does that.
Yeah, I know. And like basically I think he stopped believing in horror. I think that's like the main concept. And so he's becoming like a skeptic. He lost his faith basically. He's gone to stay at this hotel to survive, I think, 10 days of living there, or being there, and
sequestered himself maybe to write.
The idea is to write, and of course
that always works out well.
It is so haunted, and I love it.
Now, I think you mentioned that Sam Jackson's in it.
Yes, he is.
Is he a ghost? Does that spoil the movie?
I don't think. No,
number 3.
He's not a ghost. Yeah, let's move on.
All right. My number 3 is Nightmare on Elm Street.
I didn't get to say number 3.
My number 3 is Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay.
Part 3.
Oh.
The Dream Warriors.
Okay.
Now this is kind of my how to do a sequel right.
Yep.
For those who have seen the Nightmare on Elm Street movies or haven't, Part 2 was the only departure from the genre, really. Mm-hmm. The genre has always been Freddy goes after someone that lives in Nancy's house. It's usually a female hero. Mm-hmm. Number 2 was a male hero. So it's actually kind of called the homoerotic Nightmare on Elm Street because there's a lot of gay tones in it.
Yep.
And it wasn't very well received, I don't think. And they did some weird things with Freddy, like he was just running around killing people in the real world. And everyone was like, well, how the hell does he do that? Well, don't worry, we'll explain it in the next movie. And then they ignored it for the next 20 years.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is how you do a sequel right. They brought back Nancy. Yep. They brought back her father. They expanded on the lore and introduced his mother. The origin of how he was born, the whole son of 1,000 maniacs. And on on top of all that, it does something I love and something I really want to do with Alice. It had an awesome rock and roll soundtrack with Dokken, the great 80s band, providing the theme song, which I still listen to way too much. Or after, God, what's it been? It's been 33, 32 years. Mm-hmm. Still love that song, still love that movie. Although I should say that there's one notable exception. Like I really love Nightmare 5 as well, which I don't think a lot of people like. It was Rennie Harlan's Nightmare on Elm Street, where he brought in all these neon lights and just...
Oh, so you went Joel Schumacher.
Oh, it looks so awesome. Crap movie, but it was, it was so awesome. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors, number 3 for me.
Mine is Hitchcock's The Birds.
Oh, you went classic.
Yeah. I think what really gets me about that film is just the way it's edited. It is like so well edited. It's beautiful.
Although given this time of year, it's kind of like a documentary in Australia.
Well, yeah.
Swooping down, attacking.
I mean, I cannot walk past a playground of birds and not think of that scene. I mean, it is like, and what's so clever is that it's not that horrific and nothing's explained. It's a movie where the birds just go crazy. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like, I guess it's the end of the world. It's an apocalypse. It's you know, it's the asteroid hitting Earth. I guess it's obvious what's going on. Yeah. But the journey that the characters go through and the tension that exists, it just, you know, I believed it was way ahead of its time. And the scene where the birds hit the town mm-hmm. and the petrol station explodes and all that sort of thing. It's something that I just didn't think would have been put to film in the 60s.
Now, this is my we are done professional moment of the of the quiz.
Yeah.
Hitchcock, I know he directed. Mm. Did he write?
Yes.
He did.
I think so. So now I'm doubting myself, but yeah, he was a writer-director. He crafted that from all these films, I think.
I think as I remember, because I remember back in the day, and it might have been before you were born, or at least before you started watching movies, we had like, I think it was called Hitchcock Theatre.
Yeah.
But there was like a Hitchcock TV show that was on every Saturday night on Canberra TV.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to grow up with Hitchcock. And one thing I remember about a lot of Hitchcock films, he came up with a simple idea and went to town on it. He turned it on his head, made it scary. Yeah. That's always the one thing that you love about Hitchcock. And I think The Birds too. It's been a while since I've seen The Birds, but I remember liking it a lot.
Okay, yeah. All right, moving on. Mm-hmm. Number 2.
Number 2 for me is In the Mouth of Madness. This is one of the last, I won't say good, but one of the last John Carpenter movies he made before he sort of retired in the 90s. It's very H.P. Lovecraft. Mm-hmm. It's very trippy. It's about a private investigator played by Sam Neill. He's been hired by a publishing house to find a writer named Sutter Kane, who is kind of like Stephen King, who owes them a book, but they can't find him. So he goes on a road trip with the editor to a place that turns out to be actually a place that's inside the books. So they basically go into the books and come across Sutter Kane, come across the strange Lovecraftian type of monsters that are around and things that are in his books coming to life. And basically he gets the manuscript, takes it out into the world, and the manuscript is what is going to make the world insane. So it's basically this apocalyptic tale about how the world is slowly going insane because of this book. And I guess towards the end, they're like, okay, well, not everyone reads it. That's okay. The movie will do it. Mm. And the caveat of the whole movie is that the character of, I think it was John something or other that Sam Neill played, was a character in this this book that he had written. Mm. And we're watching the movie as the movie goes along, and it's phenomenally good.
You seem to like the meta side of these, because
every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking before the podcast recording about the New Nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Yep.
Which I somehow just missed from my radar. I was like, what's they made another Nightmare film before they did the remakes?
After Freddy's dead and before Freddy vs. Jason, they made Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was set in the real world. The actress that played Nancy played herself, Wes Craven played himself, Robert Englund played himself, and it was basically about how the Nightmare on Elm Street films contained this otherworldly evil, and now that they stopped making the movies, the evil has sort of.
Oh, so it connects with the second one.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah.
Not in the sense
because you were saying he was killing people in the real world.
Yeah. Oh, but basically, how he kills people in the dreams.
Oh, right,
so
right.
In that movie, he was somehow manifesting in the real world, and it made no sense.
So he's manifesting in the real world.
Yeah. So now it's in the real world. We watched the trailer not so long ago, and it's a terrible trailer. It doesn't really do the movie justice. It comes off looking like a documentary.
Yeah.
But it's very cool. They redesigned Freddy. They took away the glove and made it sort of a claw because it wasn't actually Freddy. It was this demon character.
Yeah.
And it was the first time that Wes Craven came back to the series. First and only time.
Yep.
And it was pretty popular.
Yeah. Okay.
But completely off your radar.
Yeah. No, I was so a bit surprised. So something I'm gonna definitely check out.
Movie night.
Yeah, movie night.
Yep.
So no, my number 2. I don't know. I reckon I'm going to get some groans over this one. But I think like the series for me is just so influential in my storytelling, in my horror interest in slasher movies.
It's
and
not
I guess
Human Centipede, is it?
No. And
no.
It is Scream 2. Nudes.
You hipster, you.
Well, you see, I believe you were a child of the 80s. Mm-hmm. I am a child of the 90s.
Oh, you poor sucker.
And Scream was quite influential. It came out I was a bit too young to see the first one when it came out.
I actually remember seeing the first one. I saw it at the Electric Shadows Theatre in Canberra.
Yeah.
And I think I knew nothing about it. Yeah. Absolutely nothing about it. I didn't know that Wes Craven did it. All I saw was the poster with Drew Barrymore, and I was like, oh, I like Drew Barrymore. Yeah. Had no idea about it, so I went into it completely cold. Yeah. Loved it. I do like the Scream films. I will give them shit. Yeah. But mostly because of all the copycats and clones that came out after it.
True. It
started a genre of its own.
Yeah, it set the mold for slasher movies, basically. But that's what I liked it in a way. I mean, why Scream 2 was, I think, really good for me as a influencing film is it dealt much more deeply into what horror films can do and sequels. Mm-hmm. I guess as
like My Nightmare 3.
Yeah, and in a way that a young person interested in media, I was just on the edge of really my interest in film really taking off when I finally saw Scream 2, which would have not been in 97 when it came out.
97 or 98.
Yeah, but it would have been like 99, 2000 is when I saw it. And that's when I was like being a filmmaker. So the whole idea of, these characters sitting in a room talking about movies and saying, what's the best film sequel when they're in a sequel.
There are rules to surviving a horror film.
Exactly. And I guess it just helped, form a opinion on how films exist and why they exist, and I guess there was a lot of like seeing these characters that I enjoyed watching in the first one. Mm-hmm. To see them sort of progressing and growing and kind of trying to pick the whodunit side of it as well, which, to be honest, I mean, my interest in crime shows and things is always like trying to like work out who did the murder and stuff, and I think that's why that film works. Well, the series works so well because it's not just the slasher stuff; it's a mystery. It's who can you put all the dots together.
It's also kind of the '90s thing we saw with like Saved by the Bell, with Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah, they were in high school. Now they're in college.
Yep. Moving on to the next generation.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I guess I've got a pretty funny Scream 2 story. Yep. I dragged my poor mother to see Scream 2. And it was a back cinema. We were surrounded by girls who screamed at every goddamn thing. Mm. But the funny PS was when they revealed, and this is a bit of a spoiler for people who haven't seen it, so hold on tight for a 20-year spoiler. When they revealed the first of the killers, and Timothy Oliphant took the mask off, I had no idea who he was. I completely forgot his character in the movie. And he's in the movie a fair amount of time. He's a friend of Randy's. He has a scene with Sydney at the hospital. He isn't an invisible character by any stretch of the imagination. Just completely forgot who he was. So when the mask came off, I was like, who's this guy? And I remember Neve Campbell's character, Sydney, was like, Stu? And I'm like, is that the boyfriend from part 1? Didn't he die?
Yeah.
Is it the same actor?
Yeah.
And I had no cell phone, so I couldn't whip out IMDb and be like, no, that's not Johnny Depp's clone.
Yeah.
So I had absolutely no idea who it was. And it's kind of a weird thing. I don't know if it's the fault of the storytelling, the actor, me being a space cadet, but just the character left absolutely no impression on me.
Yeah, funny you say a story, because the symmetry I have is when watching Scream 3, when, spoiler, the killer is revealed to be Sydney's brother, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Where did that come from? And I mean, it took me a couple of viewings for me to get, he's the director of the Scream 3 movies, that their whole film...
The fact that when he took the mask off and he was like, Raymond Bridges,
Yeah.
director, you went like, I don't know who this guy is.
Yeah, it was so very similar. Like, he just did not stand out as a villain. So his reveal was just...
That's kind of the problem with the Scream films beyond the first one.
Yeah, the first one did it so well with the boyfriend. Like, it was like, nah, it can't be the boyfriend. And it's like, it is the boyfriend.
And the cool thing about that, because, and again, with spoilers, is that it's the boyfriend and his best friend in the first movie. So you're looking at the movie in retrospect or in a second viewing, and you're like, okay, well, I guess he killed her while the other guy was covering for that one guy. So he was arrested at this point.
Oh, yeah, you're trying to explain
Yeah.
the movie logic, which you're going to find that breaks all the time anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, you get that. But yeah, no, look, Scream 2, I feel it came at the right time in my development as a filmmaker, and so that's why it stands out as a influential thing. And yeah, I mean, I was just like, you cannot kill Randy, and they killed Randy.
Yep. I mean, I guess in the series, the only mistake they really made was 3, and that was probably because they didn't lock the script before they wrote it. I remember watching the DVD,
But
and
it's
they had
got
several...
Kevin Smith and Jay Muse in it. It makes up for all the errors, right?
Kevin Smith.
Okay, so we should move to the big number 1. Number 1.
Halloween.
Oh, obviously.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah, well, it's a Halloween countdown.
Yeah, it is, but yeah, not too obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, Halloween for me was one of the earliest horror films I ever saw. It just left an indelible mark on me. But even more, it was sort of the blueprint for my first feature screenplay, Reunion. The whole movie is just this massive, long build-up. It just sets this incredible tone. And granted, it's 40 years old, so horror movies have changed, audiences' reactions have changed, so it probably doesn't have the same reaction to most people, but for me, it did. It spent a good 60% of the movie building up before really anyone died. And then shit starts happening, and shit doesn't stop happening until the end.
And just for those who get confused between Halloween and Friday the 13th, that's
one
the
is
Jamie Lee Curtis one.
One is Babysitters in the Neighborhood.
Yeah.
The other is
Lakeside
slasher
camp,
Crystal Lake, and so forth.
Yep. Yeah, because I mean, I get them confused, like I have in the past, and I think in in trivia, like trivia nights, they ask who was the killer from Friday the 13th, and you say what? So it's Mike Myers in Halloween.
Michael Myers.
Oh, no, not Mike Myers.
Yeah, that's completely,
Austin Powers.
That's completely different. That'd be a good movie. I enjoyed seeing that.
So he's not called Michael. He's called like Mike. He's called Michael.
Michael
Myers.
Michael Myers, or aka The Shape.
Okay.
Which is what they refer to him when he's
not
stalking.
Fat bastard.
No, not fat bastard. And Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th.
That's right. Yeah.
Part 2 onwards.
Oh yes. Because obviously
that would be the Scream trivia.
Yes.
And that's why your boyfriend is now dead.
Yep.
Yes.
And
your number 1? My
number 1, John Carpenter.
Yes.
The Thing.
Uh-huh.
It's I mean, I would like to just say it's just the best horror film that I've ever seen. But I mean, look, there's so much more I should say, because it's not that known. I mean, it's known, and it's well known enough that
That's
film
the biggest
buffs,
disappointing thing.
yeah,
with John
film
Carpenter
buffs know
films.
about it.
Yeah.
But I am always telling, oh, my favorite horror film is The Thing, and they're like, oh, is that like the Blob thing? I'm like, no, like, Kurt Russell in the snow, John Carpenter, the chest opening up, and
He made Halloween, man.
yeah, like it's just not on the radar of, I guess, more casual cinema watchers. I guess that there's obviously a few people there who are aficionados, and they go, oh, good choice when you say The Thing. I guess, yeah, I find that not everyone appreciates it, and why I say that, I'm going to tell a story about. Not in recent years, but in the past, I've wanted to celebrate my birthday in a way that felt special because it's your birthday, right? So some of the things I used to do was I used to put on parties where I gave out awards, like a movie award night, and I gave my friends awards because I thought that's a cool gimmick. But then I decided,
I'll be expecting an award for myself pretty soon.
yeah, well, that's right. I mean, I would give my friends, awards. So, but one year I decided, instead of doing the awards part, let's do the screening, right? The screening part, because I'm a filmmaker. So I went to Bunnings and I bought all this timber and MDF, and I built a large outdoor cinema in my garden. And I'm talking, the screen would have been, come on,
A couple 100 inches.
it was huge. It was a massive screen. And I advertised what films I was showing, so there was no surprise.
Yeah, the popcorn.
I had popcorn. It was outdoors. It was in the November when the sun, it was warm.
Yep.
It did start getting a little cold, but it was warm enough that we were sitting outside.
Just enjoying the night.
Enjoying the night. But, and we put on something else first. I cannot remember what. Something a bit more, sort of more open to other people to
Austin
enjoy.
Powers, man.
I can't remember what it was. But then the second film I showed was The Thing.
Yep.
And
to all the friends that were like, The Thing.
yeah, well, no, I mean, let's put it this way. Yeah, they thought it was okay. Yeah, we'll put it on. We're watching it, and by the end of the movie, it was only me and one other person, and I was so disappointed.
That's kind of the thing with John Carpenter films. Like, aside from Halloween, most of his films aren't really appreciated.
And there's just some really crazy and I mean, the question, who is the alien? Who's next? It was just the tension is so high in that movie. And there's a lot of explosions and there's a lot of graphic blood, horror, gore stuff.
And certainly it starts with the helicopter chasing the dog, and you're like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, it's definitely.
Are they cat people?
Yeah, I don't think I could ever really put into words why The Thing is just my ultimate movie, horror movie.
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
Did you see the remake?
No. Yes, I did. I fell asleep very quickly. It was kind of slow.
Could you accept it being a prequel? Which is kind of what it was.
I did accept it as a prequel until all the CGI stuff really destroyed it. And I know behind the scenes they were trying to...
They did try to do
practical, and I don't understand why some idiot producer went, no, it looks terrible, we got to CGI it. I'm like, well, now it looks even more terrible.
That's the thing. And I guess the reason why I guess you just dig practical effects, they just look so much better.
Practical effects are the bomb, and I will do what I can to keep it. Sometimes I understand it's not possible, and I understand now the way that movies go is that there is a mix of practical and computer generated. And
obviously you can't do like massive armies like in Avengers.
Yes,
but why not have a practical vampire?
Yeah,
or a werewolf.
Yeah,
and if you use CGI to enhance it, then all the better. But if you just do it as CGI, it's what do they call the uncanny valley?
Yeah,
that the brain just knows it's not real.
Yeah,
it just doesn't accept it.
An example of that would be Rogue One and Grand Moff Tarkin. It's really cool that he's in it, and it is integral to the story. But
I kind of remember seeing.
it looks good. Like it looks.
At first, it looked really good.
Yeah, rewatches.
But then he wouldn't go away.
Yeah, that was true. He was on it probably too long, and I think that's where it lost a bit. Obviously, a young Carrie Fisher was interesting as well.
It didn't look real.
It didn't look right.
But it was a nice bit.
Yeah, and so I guess that's the argument. We can flow into other recent films. Gemini Man, that's just come out and also flopped. But it does look amazing, the work they're doing there. So there is that talk where the digital is going to supersede practical at some point.
Yeah.
It's not there yet. And that's just my approach, and that's, I think, why the thing is just brilliant, because it's all practical and it looks so much more real.
And that was Rick Baker, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rick Baker. And obviously he's American Werewolf in London, and he did the sequel.
So many films. He created the effects for all our childhood.
Well, that's the end of our special Halloween episode. Russell, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for letting me out of my cage.
Oh, sorry I locked you in there.
Happens.
And in the next episode of Film Rhapsody, I am joined by award-winning filmmaker and producer Hugh Sanderson, who breaks down his storytelling techniques and basically takes over the show.
I don't mean to interrupt, but are you going to give me walkies now?
No, get back in your cage.
Film Rhapsody is produced by Dan Sanguinetti and Russell Lee for Sanguinetti Media. Head to sanguinettimedia.com.au to subscribe to all our episodes.
Oh, I didn't record it.